Hey everybody, Kelly Engineer here, and welcome to episode 14 of Journey Across the Void. In between episodes, I made a bunch of glowstone coolers and put them inside my fission reactor. It's been completely redone, and as a result, I generate about 12,000 RF a tick on my TBU fuel. I will be upgrading the fuel in this episode because I can now dissipate a lot more heat as well. So yeah, that's something that I can do. I also made a flux plug and attached it to the fission reactor port. The flux plug's powering my nuclear craft channel, and the nuclear craft channel's powering the nuclear craft machines. Go figure. In this episode, though, what we're going to do is we're going to focus more on the fusion reactor, which, like I said at the end of the last episode, it is a whole nother monster altogether. I need to generate a bunch of hydrogen fuel, a liquid hydrogen fuel. I need to make a whole bunch of these electromagnets. Not necessarily the superconducting. I can make the fusion electromagnets, but I may make the superconducting electromagnet just because I have the materials. I may not have enough crystal binder because calcium sulfate is very difficult to get into, but I'll worry about that when we get into it. Without any further ado, get to it. The first things that I'm going to create for these are the fusion connectors, which are tough alloy, basic plating, and copper. Super simple to make. I'm making 4 of them because I'm going to be making a tier 2 fusion reactor to begin with. I do not have the materials right now. I could barely scrape the materials together to make enough advanced plating for the tier 2. I am nowhere near ready for above tier 2 right now. But I have also fusion electromagnets. I'm going to go place these right now. I'm getting everything ready in order to make the fusion core, but unfortunately I need elite plating, and I have some stuff brewing up right now to make that elite plating. I'll go over that in the future, but let's go set up these electromagnets. So all these blocks of cobblestone represent where the fusion core is going to go. I'm going to attach the fusion connectors on the cardinal directions. As you increase the tier of a fusion reactor, you're actually going to have to put more fusion connectors on the cardinal directions. Just keep going out and out, but the more that you go out, and the max size is 24, as you go out you're going to require more electromagnets, because after that you're going to create a ring around it. So I'm going to complete this ring, and the reason why I didn't want to make a tier 2 is because I need to have this thing hooked up with a comparator, but in order to have it hooked up with a comparator, I need some room to place all of that redstone. With a tier 2, I do not have that room because the next set of electromagnets actually go right around here. And yeah, with that, I don't really have the room necessary in order to put all of this here. I'll figure it out in the future. I mean, I'm a ways out from having to worry about the comparator anyway. But I'm going to construct all of my rings because I need, in a diamond pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, leaving the center completely clear whenever I'm making the fusion reactor. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back with you. So I have 3 sides of the electromagnets done, but I want the 4th side to be transparent. So if you combine glass, there we go. If you combine glass with the electromagnets, they become transparent. The reason why I want them transparent is because when these things are activated, you can actually see the plasma going around inside the gap that you're creating in this ring. And I want that plasma to be visible because when I have this placed in the triskelion, I only want these 2 electromagnet sides and this transparent electromagnet and the plasma inside to be visible in the wall that I'm going to place this fusion reactor. I think it's going to look pretty neat. I have a picture in my head of how it's going to look, and who knows how it's actually going to look in reality, but I do have a plan. Well, now that these electromagnets are placed, I can't really power them until I have the fusion core in place, so I'm going to start working on building that. I've already made the chemical reactors, and I'm going to make 3 despite only needing 2, because I am going to need the chemical reactor to make the fuel that's going to power my fusion reactor. So now that I have these, the last thing I need are the elite plating, and elite plating require crystal binder. Crystal binder requires calcium sulfate, and calcium sulfate is it's a pain to make. So I'm going to need a crystallizer and put calcium sulfate solution in there. I could use a cow, but I'm treating this like it's in a vacuum, my own self-imposed rules. So I'm going to need a fluid enricher to put, oh, never mind, the chemical reactor to put sulfuric acid and fluorite water inside. I have fluorite from crushing diorite, so I have the crushed fluorite necessary to make that. I'm going to make all of these machines and go over this process because I do need the sulfuric and I do need the fluorite. So, yeah, let's get this party started. The next item I'm going to need is the crystallizer. That turns the calcium sulfate solution into the calcium sulfate, and I decided to ignore my own rules by hooking up cows. I have 3 tritium cows and 1 calcium sulfate cow. I hooked them up and then I went to go take a nap, about a 3-hour nap, and in that time I managed to get about, I think when I woke up this was 67 buckets, but now it is 73 buckets of calcium sulfate and quite a bit of tritium, but not nearly enough. So I'm going to have to keep this running for quite a while. But I'm going to take a couple buckets of the calcium sulfate, run it through the crystallizer, and hook up, well, I guess hook up is the wrong word. I'm going to throw them into a crafting grid and get me my crystal binder. Alright, here we go. Got my crystal binder, and I'm going to pop the crystal binder in here to make 32 of the elite plating. That quest is now complete, and I'm going to throw the elite plating in here so I can make my fusion core, finally. So I have elite plating now, very happy about that. That was a quest complete. I'm going to make more, obviously, because I'm never going to stop needing plates with nuclear craft, especially if I want to make the elite solar panel, which is a quest of the pack, not a quest of nuclear craft. So I'm going to go place this fusion core right now and get ready to start pumping in my fuel and then pumping out everything else that's going to be pumping out of this thing. So in order to power up my electromagnets, I'm going to need to increase the amount of power that I'm creating with my fission reactor. For that, I'm going to be making low-enriched uranium-233 fuel, and that is made pretty easily with uranium-238 and uranium-233. If I combine all of this inside a crafting grid, bam, I got my fuel. Looking at the power for the fuel, my base power generation is going to be 144 RF a tick. My base heat generation is going to be 60 heat a tick. So I'm going to have to be careful because 60 heat per tick is quite a ways away from what the TBU fuel is producing with the 18 heat per tick. I know I'm going to be generating the power that I need. I just need to make sure that I'm not generating the heat I don't need. My next machine is the fuel reprocessor. I'm making the fuel reprocessor because all of my depleted TBU fuel that I've been saving can be broken down into things that I can use for nuclear craft. So I'm going to pop it right here, and I'm going to throw my TBU fuel right inside. Now, as this thing reprocesses, what it's going to do is it's going to give me uranium-233, one of the components I need for the LEU-233. I could make the LEU-235 right now because as I break down uranium, I get tiny clumps of uranium-235 right here. If you combine it, you'll get the uranium-235, and then combined with that, you'll have the LEU-235. That's not making the power that I need it to right now, and the heat generation is also a little bit less than the 233 as well. I'm going to make the 233 because I still need to power up every single one of these electromagnets, but I also need to power up everything else that's in nuclear craft, and I want to make sure that I have some sort of buffer going on. And here we go, tiny clumps of uranium-233. That is what I need. I'm going to go condense this, and I'm going to make my LEU-233 fuel. Whenever I reprocess the TBU fuel, I also get uranium-235, neptunium-237, and wow, that's a lot of neptunium-237, and neptunium-236. I have no need for these right now, but later on I am going to need the neptunium because it can be turned also into a fuel. Awesome, LEU-233. I still have a little bit of TBU fuel running in the fission reactor right now. It should just about be done, I don't know, in like 10 minutes. But after I use up all of my TBU fuel, I am going to pop this in here and see how I do on my heat dissipation before actually powering it on. So now all of my TBU fuel has been used. I have the depleted stuff here. I'll reprocess it in just a second. But I'm going to turn this off and place in a piece of LEU-233. Oh, wonderful. So that is, yeah, that'll do. Okay. The reason why the power situation is so important is because the fusion electromagnets require 200 RF a tick to stay active, which means I need to be pumping RF constantly into them. At 200 RF a tick times, what is this? This is 2 stacks. So that is 25,600 RF a tick needs to be constantly supplied. Using one piece of LEU-233, I will be generating 29,184 RF a tick, which I honestly thought it would be more, but at the very least, I am still dissipating quite a bit of heat. I don't have to worry about my reactor overheating. The efficiency is still going to be amazing. I'm going to turn this on. And you know what? It is not doing that bad. About 45 seconds worth of the fuel remaining. Efficiency is still 316% because of how I have it configured. So, oh yeah, I'm creating quite a bit of power now. I just need to automate the creation of the LEU-233 fuel, which that would necessitate making a new fission reactor just to go through all of the TBU. That is quite a hassle. But regardless, I have this thing being powered up. Now I'm ready to actually attach a whole bunch of flux points to the electromagnets. I have made 6 flux points that I'm going to hook up right here and right here. And I'm also going to do the same over on the side. Whenever I hook this thing up to power and I choose my network, nuclear craft, I'm going to do this for all of them. You can see that some of these electromagnets are turning green. That means that they are active. They're being actively powered. And that power actually spreads, because this is just a giant multi-block, across each of the rings. So power being supplied here will not spread to this ring, and vice versa. I'm going to go turn this back on so I'm actually transferring power again. And actually supplying it with some fuel. That'd be nice. Here we go. Alright, so power is being supplied to my electromagnets. I just need to wait for it to spread. And here we go. All rings are powered. It recognizes that this is a size 2 reactor. No energy, no efficiency. This is all well and good. Over here are the 2 spots where your fuel is going to be going. And here are the 4 spots where your outputs are going to be. And then efficiency, temperature, and energy kind of speaks for itself. Right now I have void output overflow is something that would normally be selected, but I plan on using every single bit of the output of my tritium fuel. I'm also going to be doing double tritium, which means I don't have to select this either. Prevent input overflow, if selected, means that once this one fills with tritium, it would leave this tank empty and free to put a secondary fuel inside. I have no need to do that, so it is deselected. I'm just about ready to start powering up the fusion reactor, and this goofy looking setup is how I'm going to do it. So I have my tritium, and all my cows are still producing the tritium and throwing it into this quantum tank. I do not need to feed the top of the fusion reactor from right here. I can do it from any spot. It recognizes that it is a fuel, and it will go into the proper spot regardless. I did not power this. Why is the... Well, okay then. Over here is where my outputs are going to go. Because I'm using tritium as my fuel, there are only 2 types of outputs, helium and then neutron fluid. I don't have this activated either right now because I want to make sure that I have the proper fluid going into the proper tank, because I have quantum tanks over here accepting both of those fluids. The only thing I need to do now is grab a lever and activate it. It's not enough to just throw the lever down and activate it either. You also have to raise the fusion core's temperature to, and I'm honestly not sure whether or not this is supposed to be 8 million Kelvin or 8,000 Kelvin, because the mod interchanges where it wants to put this K right here. So this very well could be 8 million Kelvin temperature. That's neither here nor there. You see that I've already tried this and the temperature is going down because I am not powering the fusion core anymore. I ran out of power on my fission reactor, so it started depowering the electromagnets in an attempt to raise the temperature of the fusion reactor. At 8,000 Kelvin, the tritium in here will actually activate and it will start generating power for me. So I just need to power it enough to get to that 8,000 and then I'm good. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to siphon off of my extreme reactor for this to try to get the power to raise, and wow, that is slow. But I'm going to have to wait quite a while and probably siphon off quite a bit of power from my extreme reactor, waste that yellorium, in order to get this to work, but it'll be worth it once the fusion reactor is actually activated. Alright, there we go. The fusion reactor is now active, and hold on a second, let me lower the audio for that. There we go. Sounds much better. So as you can see, now that it's activated, the temperature bar has changed to the maximum temperature that the fusion reactor can go to, and my efficiency is at 0. As the temperature rises, my efficiency will go up as well, which means it will use the fuel a heck of a lot more efficiently and produce me more power because of it. So right now my power is going up, thankfully. And the reason I used tritium is because of that. If I had used hydrogen, then the temperature would not be going up this quickly, and it would take longer for my efficiency to reach like 90%. And it wouldn't produce power as quickly as this either. So tritium is, I believe the mod author said it is actually the best fuel that you can use in the fusion reactor. So kudos to that. But now that I have the power going, I just need to siphon it out to something that will actually, hold all of this power. And also, now that the reactor is actually activated, I no longer need to supply this power. I can remove this flux point, and unless I turn off the reactor and the temperature drops below that 8,000 that it was showing initially, I don't have to worry about powering up the fusion core itself. Now I need to very quickly find a way to siphon off all of this power. You can see that I already have 3.6 million RF has already been generated, and this thing has been running for about 2 minutes now. So yeah, I definitely need to solve my energy storage problem. So I am not sure what just happened, but my fusion reactor just exploded. Yeah, I turned it off while I was going on to the next thing, and then I just heard a huge explosion. That is plasma, by the way. Don't touch that. It sets fire to everything. So yeah, I do not know why that happened. I wasn't monitoring anything, but the temperature should have already gone down. And yeah, the fusion reactor is completely gone. I tried salvaging my electromagnets while I could, and I didn't manage to get the transparent ones, but it did blow a hole in the triskelion, and whatever. That's an easy hole to patch. I just need to get rid of all of this plasma. Alright, there we go. I have gotten rid of the plasma, and I'm just about ready to patch up the hole. And like I said, I have no idea why the reactor exploded. It couldn't have been temperature. The reactor was off. I was actively siphoning out all of my outputs. I do not know why it exploded. But anyway, I'm going to move on to the next thing, even though I have nowhere to put it. I'm going to be fixing my power problem. Not my power problem, but my power storage problem. 2 episodes ago, when I started Mechanism, I made a whole bunch of ultimate energy cubes, and there was a reason for that. It wasn't because I was going to be using ultimate energy cubes everywhere to power everything. It's because I wanted a bunch of them in order to make induction providers. So the induction complex, the induction multi-block in Mechanism, stores a ridiculous amount of power, and I want to make one. So, and when I make one, I mean I'm going to make a whole bunch of them because they're going to be storing a ridiculous amount of power. So with my ultimate energy cube, I can make my induction provider, or I can make my induction cell. And if you look at the capacity of the induction cell, you'll see the capacity is 204.8 giga RF. And that actually brings up a really good point. I've been calling it million RF and then 1000 RF because of the little k and then the big M. It's actually kilo RF, mega RF, and this is giga RF. For future reference, I'm going to still call it million and 1000 because it's essentially the same thing, but it is supposed to be giga, mega, and kilo. So, moving on, I am going to be making the induction cell, the induction multi-block from Mechanism. So in order to make this multi-block, I am going to be using 3 induction cells, and I'm going to be using 1 induction provider. Right now they are only at the advanced level because 2 hours of my life were just dealing with energy tablets, and I didn't feel like spending any more. I want to finish this episode out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place down my induction cells in here inside this multi-block, and also put the provider in there as well. Here we go. Now all I have to do is just fill in everything. In order for this to work, I do need at least 2 induction ports. I'm going to be using 4. Oh, no. I'm going to be using 4, as well as using some structural glass on the front of it, because structural glass from Mechanism can be used in any multi-block, so it's just something to remember. And now I'm going to close this thing out. Now, if I've done this correctly, I should be able to see red particles. There we go. I have done this correctly, and now I have a complete multi-block. I can add to this as well because anything that is inside can be filled up. And I'll fill that up a little bit later. Now, on the back side, I have made a configurator, and the configurator, I have this on output, and I'm going to have 2 of them on output, and one of them is going to be on input and be fed from my fusion reactor once I rebuild it. And then the other ones are going to be for flux points. But with that, I now have a ridiculous amount of power that I can hold on to. 9.6 giga RF. So I figured out what caused the explosion earlier. Apparently there was not enough power getting to one of my electromagnets, and because there wasn't enough power, it ignited the plasma that was inside my coils, and that caused a plasma fire. It is something that can happen, and looking in the mod options for nuclear craft, under fusion configs, fusion plasma fires. So it is enabled to true, so there is that, and something that I'm going to have to worry about a little bit later. I was not aware of that before I set this up, otherwise I would have made sure I was supplying enough power. But that was the reason for my plasma fire. Or my explosion, rather. So what I was going to do is I was going to have the fusion reactor be feeding this power all the time, but since I had the explosion, that plan's been dampened a little bit, so I am going to close out this episode. In between episodes, I will rehook the fusion reactor back up and actually get my induction multi-block. I'll probably make it a little bit bigger, honestly. It's going to take a while to assemble the materials necessary to have the ultimate induction provider, but that is perfectly fine. We'll jump that hurdle when we get to it. But I am Kelly Engineering. Next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to take everything that we've just done in the previous 3 episodes, and we are going to throw it all together. So I'm going to have my fission reactor, my fusion reactor, the induction multi-block, and everything from mechanism all running in this wing of the Triskelion. And that's going to be it's going to be quite the feat. So I'm Kelly Engineering. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.